Artificial intelligence is a very broad field, and the three most important job opportunities under this area is usually machine learning engineer, AI engineer, and data scientist. Sometimes these three are used interchangeably, but there are fundamental differences, and today we're going to talk about them. In case you're here for the first time, my name is Joshua. I'm an AI engineer based in Tokyo, Japan. On this channel, I share my experiences, I teach the things that I know and the things that I'm learning. If my content is helpful to you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Now, let's get into the video. So, I'm going to talk about the major differences between a data scientist, an ML engineer, and AI engineer. First, I'm going to try to define each of these core areas. And from the definition, you can easily see maybe the focus of each of the areas and probably the major differences between them. However, apart from that, their job requirements are also different, and the responsibilities, even in a team or in a development team, they are also different. So these are all the things I'm going to talk about in this video. First of all, what is data science? Data science is basically the description, prediction, and inference from both structured and unstructured data. Basically, this discipline is focused on making better business decisions. And you can always think of this as given some bunch of raw data. How can we extract useful information from this raw data and use this information to make business decisions? It's not just businesses, but also organizations, government organizations, any kind of organization that needs to make decisions, that needs to make informed decisions in order to carry out that day-to-day activity. Machine learning, on the other hand, is a branch of AI where we actually use some kind of data algorithms or data driven algorithms or models to make predictions, to make estimations, and do all of this without explicit programming. That is one core idea in machine learning. And how does it relate to data science? So a data scientist focuses on the process of coming up with the model, whereas machine learning focuses on implementation of the model that actually achieves the aim. Now, going to AI is more of an overarching field. So basically, trying to imbue machines or computers to be able to perform tasks that are considered to be intelligent if a human is carrying out the same activity. This is actually a definition that was given by the forefathers of AI as far back as 1950. AI is kind of very broad and usually has many divisions and specializations for practitioners. Kind of differentiating this basically by the example is, for example, a data scientist would try to find out how to get people to watch more content on an online streaming platform, given large amount of user data available. Basically, for example, like Netflix or YouTube or the rest. Whereas on the other hand, after the model has been created, a machine learning engineer would implement the models. So, for example, the data scientist comes up with the idea that if we come up with a personalized recommendation model for people who are using these platforms, then you can make them basically to watch more content on those platforms. The machine learning engineer goes ahead to implement those models. Some other example is create a face detection algorithm, as you have seen in Facebook or in Google Photos. An AI engineer, on the other hand, would be the guy who develops the MVP, that is the minimum viable product that integrates the streaming and the personalized recommendation system in this case. So you can always think of the AI engineer as more like the one-man army that does both the work of the data scientist and the machine learning engineer. And now let's go into what exactly each of them do in each of their spaces. So the data scientists are more like in the creative space. So they come up with new ideas or new models that can be used to achieve the aim of the business or the organization. Whereas the machine learning engineer are more like in the implementation space. They help the data scientists to actualize those ideas. And the same thing for AI engineer. They come up with the new ideas and they also go ahead to implement those ideas. So the data scientists focus mostly on business. They're focused on business and data. They gather, process, derive valuable insights from the data. that they gather. So in order to do this, they use a statistical analysis that is required to determine which machine learning approach or AI approach to use. Then they model the algorithm and prototype for testing. This is another thing that the data scientist does. And also they use experiments around that data with models and methods to help businesses achieve their growth. On the other hand, the machine learning engineer, they are more about implementing the ideas that have been put forward by the data scientists. They are product focused, so they are more looking into how do we make this idea into a product. So whichever model that the data scientist comes up with, they find how to transform this idea or the model into a product, and they make the product prototypes to work in a production environment at scale. So basically they are more of a semi software engineer. They also have a software engineering skill, and which makes them to be able to make these models into a product. So therefore they build programs that control computers and robots to identify patterns and act based on that data. And so, what about the AI engineer? An AI engineer, it's like I've said before, they are the one man army that kind of tries to give the ability of humans to machines. What they do is basically produce intelligent, autonomous models and embed them into applications. So, the AML engineer basically kind of stops it at the level of, okay, we make this product and we make it into um, we make this model and we make it useful in a production environment. An AI engineer kind of takes this and kind of embeds it into a useful application for the user. They actually have like a full spectrum of developing models and tools to make machines perform intelligent tasks. This could as well cover data science and machine learning itself. So they're more like the overarching type of the three. And actually, they can also do the work of both the data scientist and the machine learning engineer. They use machine learning, deep learning, software engineering, algorithms, NLP, which is natural language processing, to build and deploy end-to-end AI solutions. So they have to be vast in application. They have to be vast in using all these tools in order to make the final product. They also do research focused at finding the right model for solving the task whilst training and monitoring and developing. The data scientist does this, but the thing about data scientists is that they come from more varied backgrounds, which makes them to mostly excel in research. And so implementing the research in production might not be their biggest strong point. Still talking about AI engineers, they have to create the interfaces. So after these models have been created, they also have to create the interface that allows the user to make use of the models that have been created. And how they do all of this also, they have to do like a feature extraction, and they have a wider range of application for the work that they do. Next, I'm going to talk about like what are the things that are required of each of these areas. So, what are the requirements of a data scientist? A data scientist, they need to be highly educated, and actually they have the widest range of education in the three. Usually, most of the job requirements that I see, they are mostly supposed to have a master's or PhD in computer science, in mathematics, statistics, economics, and also neuroscience. So they have a wider range of backgrounds amongst the three, and they're supposed to be able to use Python, Java, and SQL as like programming languages. Actually, for data scientists, they may not be that good with programming. Basically, what is necessary for them is the analytical skill and the mathematics or statistics skill, but it's also an added advantage since Python is a very easy language, and also they must be able to find a way to use to extract data, which makes SQL a very very useful tool for them. And so they must have mathematics skills, analytics skills, and data mining skills. Those are like very important skills for data scientists. And of course, they would have experience with machine learning. And the typical employers for data scientists are big data companies, marketing agencies, universities and research institutions, government agency, manufacturers, and banks. So these are the kind of people that seek for data scientists the most, because most of these industries generate a lot of data and they need to make use of those data. talk about machine learning engineer, what are the requirements for a machine learning engineer? Most company prefer candidates who have a master's in computer science and a related field. Actually, maybe machine learning engineers and AI engineers are are kind of stricter in the requirement for their backgrounds because you're going to be doing a lot of software engineering. So, which means that you should have a computer science background. But if you don't have a computer science background, it's also fine. For me, I didn't have a computer science background. I had a mechanical engineering background, which is kind of near in a way in the technicalities, but it's not a pure computer science background, which means you still have a lot to learn in order to be able to fit into the industry. So they need to know how to implement machine learning algorithms. This is very, very important for any ML engineer, whichever algorithm it is. And for programming languages, Python and R are usually used for algorithms and prototypes. But for production, you need to use more versatile languages such as Java and C++. In my own field, Python and C++ are more like the most popular languages. Java is also popular if you are developing like web interface or your online API. Java becomes very, very important. If you are working more with hardware, then C++ is very important. Of course, they should have skills, mathematical skills, probability and statistics must be very strong, and also analytical skills. So, who are the people that employ these people the most? Basically, you have AI based startups, manufacturers, research institutions. Those are the people that actually look for a lot of ML engineers. Of course, the ones that I mentioned before, also for data scientists, also look for ML engineers. However, I mean, these are more of the places where you see ML engineers. And now for AI engineers, what are the requirements for AI engineers? Basically, all of these things that we've talked about before, plus like being able to use Python, Java, C++, those are very great advantages. And you should have a computer science and software engineering background as fundamentals. These are really fundamentals that you have to really take note of as AI engineers. Mathematics and algorithms, these are very, very important for AI engineers because it's not only about like the models, it's actually how you use the model in order to solve the problem. It must be really intelligent in the way you use those to solve the problem. There are also people that are vast in cognitive science about reasoning, language, perception, emotions, memory, and auditions. These are areas that AI is usually applied nowadays because these are areas that are traditional to humans. And so AI engineers are usually given the task of trying to reproduce these abilities in a machine. And typical employers for AI engineers are kind of all of the above that I've mentioned before, plus AI based startups, basically robotics companies, manufacturing also. There's also something called robotic process automation. These are areas that would try to use AI or machine learning to accelerate tasks that are usually done by humans. So these, for me, are the things that differentiate the data scientist, the ML engineer, and the AI engineer. I didn't go into salaries, of course. I'm not focusing on that, but as per their responsibilities and what is expected of each of these ones, these are the things you really want to look into. And if you're more of on the research side, that you want to focus on like creating models and not really producing things, maybe data scientist or ML engineer is more of kind of fitted for that. But for producing actual products and actually doing things that directly affect the users on the front end, the AI engineers are more on that side. I would say that AI engineer kind of covers most or even all of the things that this data scientist and the ML engineers does. Each of them have their peculiarities, but of course, AI engineers are more vast in what they're expected to do and the things that they're expected to achieve in each of the job roles. I think that data scientists are more popular these days because most companies need data scientists. Maybe not AI engineers, but most companies usually would need a data scientist or data analyst or something like that. So this is why data scientists are actually kind of the number one job on most of the job sites right now. So if you're looking into going into any of this, then you would not actually make a mistake with any of them. But if you have a preference, then you can decide on which one you like. That's it for the major differences between the data scientist, the ML engineer, and AI engineer. If you have any other comments or any other differences that you know, please let me know in the comments. If you find this video useful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.